So I'm one of those people who has taken a hot minute to get into Valheim because I'm not a huge fan of survival games traditionally. Now I do play a lot of Minecraft with my niece and my nephew and my brother. Those kids are 7 and 5 and we've been doing that as a family for about 2 years now. And I enjoy that when I'm playing with them, but usually when I've played survival games on my own, I've always sort of hit a struggle bus of trying to find enjoyment in a game that punishes me if I forget to eat or if I forget to drink, which is something that I'm not a huge fan of that, but I do like the exploration aspect of, say, Minecraft and the not knowing what you need to do and sort of having to figure it out as you go along, unless of course you go online and read tutorials and watch videos and so on and so forth. So that aspect of the survival game has always sort of intrigued me at the very least, because it takes me back to my early days of playing like EverQuest and not having any sort of information about how to play the game. So I know that Valheim is something that has taken the world by storm. It's done more than 10 million sales in early access, but I've just sort of been waiting on the fence with it until it was getting closer to release. But it did finally come to the Xbox Game Pass yesterday, and I dove in for the first time, so welcome to my first impressions video. Now, being someone who is not completely intimate with the survival game genre and also just Valheim in particular, I knew a little bit about the game going into it, but they do give you a fairly rudimentary breakdown of the lore as you get going into the game. So since I'm a huge fan of the Vikings and the cultural aspect, my family is from Finland, so I have roots that go back to my great grandmother. So I've always been extremely interested in the Viking culture and the Norse gods, and so being able to have this tie-in to a culture and mythology that I've followed throughout my life, even though I'm not necessarily pagan myself, is an additional draw to the game, not just with the art style, but also just I'm familiar with the names of everything. And especially if you go back and for those of you who have been playing God of War recently, that franchise tying into that, and of course all the shows that we've seen from different Viking aspects on the History Channel and so on and so forth. It's something that culturally is very significant in recent years. So that makes this game a lot easier to get into, because there's something here beyond just, oh, it's another survival game where you're going to build a hut and try not to die from food and everything else. So, it helped getting into things. So art style wise, I appreciate that they're doing something with the, pixel graphics, but it's more than Minecraft, because we actually have a little more definition here, even though it is still a very simplified, pixelized graphic style, as opposed to something that's, rendering out in high definition. So performance-wise, it's great. I don't know what performance is like on the PC. Obviously, I'm playing this on the Xbox Series X, and performance was phenomenal. Getting through into the game was looking around and running around in the simplest starting area was very visually beautiful. I love this scene as you come in and you're hanging from the bird after you've gotten the introduction, and you can kind of pan the camera around as the storm is happening, and you can watch yourself and you eventually get dropped off. And from there, it's kind of like, well, you don't really get a lot of hand-holding. You do get to talk to your Raven, and he's going to give you some tips on how to get going, but beyond that, it's mostly you figuring out what you're going to do. And that's probably one of the areas where I kind of wish there was more of a tutorial on a personal level, but obviously you can simply pause the game and go straight to the control menu, and it shows you all the controls, so you can figure that out on your own. But I do sort of wish that there was a better new user experience that kind of guided you through and said, this does this, click this to do this, here's how to set this up as a macro, here's how to set this to this key, here's how to quickly do this, that, and the other. That seems a little bit lacking, and I don't know if that's because this is technically still in like game preview mode. I thought it was actually coming to Xbox as a full release, but when you first start off, it actually does tell you this is a game preview mode. So that part of it was a little confusing to me, but I'll roll with it. It's not something that's a huge deal, because I've played enough games over the years figuring out a control system is not that big of a deal. However, when it came to the building of structures, it's not as intuitive as I think it could be, but it's all good. I mean, I'll figure it out as we get deeper into things, and I'm definitely going to be giving this game a shot, because I've heard that it has a really good storyline, and that it's not quite as, say, open-ended as Minecraft, where you're just sort of out there just building lots of things. I've heard that you are trying to actually get somewhere with this. Like, you're trying to, earn your way back out of the underworld. So that part of it, I know that there are goals and objectives and storylines, and you're immediately kind of thrust into that when you are dropped into this druidic stone circle, and you're told that each one of these stones represents a boss that you're supposed to fight, and you're supposed to start preparing for that first fight by building a structure and getting some weapons and so on and so forth. And from there, I was not quite sure what to expect, so I was really pleasantly surprised when I realized that there are some like RPG elements here, because you start doing things and it's like, oh, you're earning points in fists, and oh, you're earning points in run, and you're getting better at axes, and you're getting better at this, that, or the other. That was something I didn't quite expect, and I don't know how that's going to tie into my character long term. So I'm generally I'm intrigued by what's going on here, but I will say that I definitely did struggle bus trying to build, not necessarily build my first structure, but you get to the point where you're told to build a workbench, and then you go to build the workbench, and it says the workbench needs a roof. Well, I was like, well, do I just throw a roof on it? How does that work? And it's like, I got a roof on top that was not placed in the proper way, and I thought that was good enough, and then it's like, oh no, your workbench is too exposed, and I'm like, oh, so I'm supposed to build walls? Okay, so now I gotta figure out how to build walls, and I was like, I gotta tear the roof down and build some walls around this thing and get some roofs on it, and then I finally got all of that done, and was like, okay, I need to take a break. Like, I literally spent about 30 minutes trying to figure out how to get the workbench to the point where I could use it. And that's probably because I'm not intimately familiar with the survival genre. And more importantly, because this game doesn't handhold you with the control aspect of it. And there's not that tutorial that I was mentioning. And that's probably part of what kind of took me out and made me feel a little kind of like I need to take a break. But ultimately, I am intrigued by this game, and I've been waiting for quite a while to play it. I held off on doing it. It came to the PC Game Pass last year, and I just held off and was like, no, I'll just wait. I'll wait until it comes to the Xbox, because I do prefer playing with the controller these days for most games that I play, because of my old man hands and tendonitis and everything else. So given that I like Norse mythology and the storyline of the Vikings and everything else, I definitely want to spend more time in this game. The RPG elements also appeal to me, so even though it is a survival game, I'm hoping that I can overcome my fear of survival and get deeper into this. Now, I understand that this game is a lot more fun with friends, and I do have some folks in our Discord community who I've been talking with over the past months who are going to be joining me once I get a little more time underneath my belt. So I do plan on playing this game at least enough to get a proper review out here sometime in the future. It might be a month or two down the road, but I just started playing this yesterday. I'm going to be weaving this into the content creation of everything else that I've got going on, and slowly diving into this with friends like once a week or so. So once I've gotten 30, 40 hours under my belt, I'll come out and do a proper review on it. But in the meantime, my initial first impression is that it felt like Minecraft, which isn't a bad thing, but visually I think it looks cool. I like the mythology, I like the storyline, I like the RPG aspects, and I'm interested in digging into it more to see what else is here. So at the end of the day, my first impression is it's at least good enough and fun enough that I'm going to keep playing it, which is more than I can say for every game that I do first impressions on. So in the meantime, if you also like Valheim and you have tips and tricks for me, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. And please support if you can, because I do get to do this full time thanks to the supportive community members with memberships, super chats, super thanks, the Discord, Patreon, and everything else. So hopefully we'll see you in all those other places and supporting the channel to keep me on the air full time. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and happy gaming.